Hello and welcome to the Culture Swally, a podcast dedicated to Scottish news and culture. My name is Nicky and I'm joined, as always, by the man who once saved up his embassy coupons so he could buy a presentation plate featuring the Queen of Hearts, Lady Diana, gone too soon and forever in our hearts. It's Greg. How are you today, Greg?
Very well. It was quite a surprising introduction there. I think the only thing when I was a committed smoker, and I smoked Regal for a while before I went all hipster and started smoking Marlboro Lights in about 1999. We used to collect focus points, but we only ever used them to make roaches for joints. We never saved them up.
Yeah, I don't think I ever save points. I was always a Marlboro Light man. In fact, that's a lie. I originally started off on Marlboro Red because I thought I was hard. And then I switched to Marlboro Lights because I remember reading in a Sky magazine. Remember Sky magazine? Not the TV network. Yeah. The kind of, it was like a lads mag, wasn't it? And I remember reading, they had an interview with Tim Roth. And like one of the first lines was like, he just casually places his pack of Marlboro Lights on the table. And I was like, oh, Tim Roth smokes Marlboro Lights. I need to start smoking Marlboro Lights. So I blame Tim Roth for that.
I had a picture of a poster of celebrated actress Anna Friel from Sky magazine, topless, but with her arms folded over her naked breasts because she was a serious actress, on my bedroom wall for quite a long time. When I was about 17, 18, 19 from Sky magazine.
Sky magazine was kind of it was almost like Loaded Light. Yeah. Like it was in between Look In and Fast Forward, but not quite Loaded. And then not quite Mayfair.
Yeah, I think I'd have probably put it somewhere between Loaded and FHM with a little bit of Look In. I'd forgotten about Fast Forward. But you see, you mentioned Look In, right? When my mum and dad first separated, my dad used to get subscribe to the Shooting Times. I say subscribe. The news agent used to keep a copy of the Shooting Times for him every week, or however often it came out. And he used to get me the Beano and used to get me Look In. And I was reading something about Look In a couple of years ago, and it was all coming back to me how like Look In used to have like a cannon and ball comic strip. Didn't they? Yeah. And they had, I think they had Dempsey and Makepeace as well. And I remember they had the Brian Robson story. They're the footballer Brian Robson. And and I can really vividly remember like the first couple of boxes, and it was like a drawing of young Brian kicking a football against the wall in some working class town in Englandshire, something like that. Really bizarre. Cannon and ball cartoon strip. I mean,
you never get that.
The only reason I knew that Brian Robson was a footballer was because I remember when I must have been about 4. It was the first time I ever went abroad, and we watched Scotland playing England, and we were in Spain, and we found this Scottish bar called the Tart and Tammy, and we went to watch the football. And they had a little function room, and the guy that owned the bar had brought his television in and set it up, and we're all sitting there watching. It was Scotland and England, and Brian Robson scored in the first maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and this Scottish guy in the bar went, "Robson, you cunt!" Of course, I was only 4 years old. I had no idea what a cunt was. I'd heard a few swear words, obviously, because you do, but I'd never heard that one before. And it's gone on to be my favourite swear word.
There you go. It left a lasting impression on you. What an education that was. You don't get comic strips like that. I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about the Beano the other day. Did I ever tell you I was in the Beano once? My name was printed in the Beano. Yeah, I wrote into Roger the Dodger. Oh, really? And we used to have, I was a big Beano fan, and we used to have in the break room at school, wasn't it a break room? Just there was loads of like old copies of the Beano and stuff. And I remember going through them and finding these really old Roger the Dodgers and stuff. And I ended up copying one of them and writing into the Beano to Roger the Dodger, and it got printed. Right. And I remember 2 of my friends come running into school the next day. "Nicky, you're in the Beano." And I was like, "What?" Because I hadn't bought the latest issue yet. So I went straight to the newsagents after school and I bought it, and I was like, "Oh my God, so excited." I got a Walkman from it. They sent me a
That's
Walkman
awesome.
as a prize for being in Roger the Dodger. Yeah. So my problem was that I needed to dodge that my mum kept drawing glasses on Roger the Dodger in the Beano. I mean, she didn't, but hey, it was something. So I think his dodge was he started wearing glasses in every frame of the rest of the cartoon to try and, it's like, hey, Mrs. Kemp, you can't put glasses on me now. So yeah, that was my proud moment as I don't know, I must have been, 8, 9, I think.
That's fucking brilliant.
It was in the Beano.
Isabel the Minx defacing your Beanos.
Aye, I know. It led me to think, actually, I'd need to ask, because our mutual friend, his son's a big Beano fan. I meant to ask him the other day, like in terms of, used to have Dennis the Menace facing off against Walter the Softy. I guess you can't have that now. I don't know. You wouldn't have him bullying Walter the Softy. That's not allowed. So I wonder who he comes up against now. And I guess, did Dennis the Menace have a police foe? Or I'm thinking Willie with PC Murdoch.
There was I can't remember the name. It was like his nemesises were Walter the Softy and his little gang, his dad and his granny. And I remember his granny had a slipper made out of elephant hide called the Demon Whacker, didn't she?
That's right, yeah. And of course his dad wouldn't be able to hit him with the slipper now either. So what the fuck does Dennis the Menace do? Does he
cyberbullying Walter the Softy? His Snapchat account.
Sending dick pics to people.
Sending dick pics to Minnie the Minx. Do you remember them?
I need to look into that, actually.
There was one. Yeah, that's it. In the Dandy, there was a strip called The Jocks and the Geordies. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And it was basically just a gang of Scottish guys fighting with a gang of, I guess, northeast of England's guys. Yeah. Newcastle. Yeah. Like a different gang would win every episode, but the Jocks all had like massive bonnets, didn't they?
Did Viz not rip that off as well and do something a bit more extreme?
Probably.
In that, maybe.
Probably.
I don't know. I can't. Yeah, see, it rings a bell. But yeah, the Jocks and Geordies. God, yeah. You know something? I use a website to peruse and download magazines occasionally. And they often have the Beano. I might download an issue and see how PC it's gotten nowadays and see what's happening.
Yeah, you can buy the Beano here in the supermarket. It's up the road from me in Spinneys. You can get the Beano.
I mean, I say I will. I probably won't. I'll never remember that. Anyway, that was a lovely trip down memory lane. Well, we've just been down memory lane. Why don't we have a look at what's been going on in Scotland in the last week? You ready for the news,
Cue the
Greg?
jingle.
Hello, this is the Outer Hebrides Broadcasting Corporation, and here is what's been going on in the news.
Okay, so yesterday, and to let a little light upon magic, we are recording this a couple of weeks in advance, we lost Meatloaf yesterday, unfortunately, Greg. And I read a little quick article about the Scottish Tribute Act for Meatloaf, and he was very sad about his passing. What do you think his name is, Greg? If you were a Scottish Meatloaf Tribute Act, what would you call it?
His stage name? Is it Mick Meatloaf?
No, it's Pete Loaf.
That's shite. I mean, Mick Meatloaf is much better.
Yeah, his name...
Pete Loaf.
Yeah, his name's Pete. So he's called himself Pete Loaf. I think that's fair enough, I think. Anyway, enough about that. So what have you seen this week, Greg, that has caught your eye in Scotland?
Well, the first one I've got is from the Scottish Sun on the 10th of January, so it's a couple of weeks old. Although it was updated on the 12th of January, so clearly there's been developments. It's an exclusive to the Scottish Sun. It says, shaggy dog story. Cheating couple caught having sex in public forced to pay shocked Scots dog walker compensation. They fucking love they love a headline in the Scottish Sun. Shaggy dog story. I bet they were high-fiving all over the office when they come up with that. It goes on, a shocked dog walker stumbled across a cheating couple having sex on a pile of logs at a beauty spot. Skelfs. Fancy that. Right, I'm going to fucking fall over myself here a couple of times. Milan Spodniak, I think I'm saying it right, 41 years old, and Ewelina Strojk, we'll say that, 37, were caught in the act as they romped next to a public footpath. The disgusted pet owner called in cops, and Spodniak who lives with his long-term partner, and the girl were traced and charged. Dad of 3, Spodniak, his Portuguese partner, and the girl all used to work together at a fish processing plant in Duns, Berwickshire. Last night, a worker there said this has caused a lot of grief, and they tried to keep it hush-hush. Milan and Willina decided to meet up at a remote spot, and they obviously got carried away. They should have been more discreet. Jebra Sheriff Court heard that Spodniak from Slovakia and Polish-born, I was going to call her Lewina instead of trying to say her second name, drove 7 miles from their pads in Duns to Greenlaw Farm, a popular hiking spot. Prosecutor Joanna Waller said, the witness was walking his dog and saw the accused having sexual intercourse against a log pile. He changed his direction to avoid walking past. The couple briefly stopped what they were doing, but as the witness walked away, they just continued to have sex. On returning home, the witness contacted the police. Spodniak and Lewina admitted indecent behaviour. This is back in September 2020. Sheriff Peter Patterson fined the pair £200 each, but they also had to pay the dog walker £50 each as compo for being confronted with their 6 p.m. bonk. Spodniak, who now works at a sawmill, still lives with his partner, so she's obviously not chucked him out. I mean, come on. I mean, how carried away would you have to get to shag on a pile of logs on a public footpath?
Well, however, they are having an affair, and if they work in a fish factory, then they don't have the disposable income to go and pay for a hotel or something. So, and they maybe can't go back to each other's apartments. So let's have it al fresco in the great outdoors. You've taken that as how desperate have you got to be shag on a pile of logs. I've taken that as what a fucking wanker that dog walker is. If you see a couple shagging in the woods, the first thing you do is you take your phone out and take a film or a camera and you send it to your mates. You don't go home and phone the cops, do you? Like, that's ridiculous. Hello, police. Yes, I'd like to report a crime. Okay, is that a murder, a rape, a nonce at a school playground? No, I've just seen a couple shagging in the woods. He's landed them in it. They've been caught out of having their illicit affair, which is he's commended for that, because obviously we don't condone anyone having extramarital affairs or anything. But come on, mate. Let them have a little woodland bonk. They were maybe just pretending they were Ewoks or something.
I mean, you're right. Just imagine the fucking Daily Mail reader out with his pedigree dog that only drinks goat's milk and fucking, you know what I mean? And out there with his wax jacket on and he's all that, and confronted by a little bit of filth. That's just like how they stop, see that he's turned round, and just get back on with it. You know what I mean?
When we were lads, you'd be lucky if you found a scud mag in the woods. Whereas now, kids are getting a live action show. It's the progression of time, Greg. We're living in the future. Kids are now getting live action shows in the woods. Obviously, just a little disclaimer, I'm not saying that that's great for kids to actually see people shagging in the woods. I don't know. Obviously, it's wrong they're having an affair. Come on. They had to pay him money. He got to see a live sex act for free, and then they've got to pay him for it. That's a bit out of order, surely.
Yeah, I mean, seeing people having sex, even if you're not a fan of pornography, for example, let's be honest, it is not the worst thing that you could stumble across in the British countryside. You know what I mean? You could stumble on a lot worse. Satanic cults, a dead body. You know what I mean? Plenty of worse things to come across that you could bump into in the countryside in the UK.
I mean, they had the politeness to go out into the woods rather than do it at a housing estate or in the middle of a roundabout or anywhere else. They've gone there for some private time, thinking we're in the woods, no one's going to find us here. This fucking, as you say, Daily Mail reading, wax jacket wearing, tartan bonnet wearing busybody has been out walking his Cocker Spaniel, and he's been, Hubert, look at what that couple are doing. Attack!
Yeah. And don't look, Hubert. Don't look. Turn away.
Avert your eyes.
We can't have your high-class pedigree sperm being corrupted by trauma.
Chris Hubert's having the time of his life. He's wanting to go up and lick the boy's arse and, see what's going on. He's like, oh, is that fresh tuna that I can smell? Because they work in a fish factory, not because, of anything else.
Not because,
I don't know.
Not because of poor feminine hygiene or anything like that. I'm sure Ewelina keeps everything spick and span down there.
Would this have made the paper if they hadn't been caught cheating? if it had been just a couple a married couple having sex in the woods, if they had been gentry, if they'd been Hubert's dog breeders having sex in the woods, would this Daily Mail reading wax jacket wearing busybody have been so he'd have been, oh, sorry,
don't mind me. It'd be like a Jilly Cooper novel or something like that, Yeah, I mean, I wonder as well, I wonder if, this doesn't really say what day of the week it happened on, I wonder if they've gone straight there from work. Because to your point, I worked one day in Abacus Fish Factory in Mintlaw in Aberdeenshire. And I
didn't know this.
I did one day because I was new. I was in the summer holidays when I was at college. I was at the end of the conveyor belt. So you can imagine the fish comes in at the top, it gets filleted, the heads and scales and bones and fins and everything came down to me. I had to push them up, I had to put them onto another conveyor belt that put them through a grinder to make, I assume, cat food and stuff. I don't know what else, And my mother, when I got home, she made me get undressed at the back door in the garden because of the aroma coming off me. And you're wearing overalls. I had the white wellies on, I had the overalls and everything over my clothes. It's obviously quite cold in a fish factory. It's got to be kept quite cold. And my clothes, everything, even my underwear and my socks reeked of fish. And I could never go back. I never did. So I wonder if they've gone straight from work. Because to your point, you could be attracting all kinds of wildlife. They could have been interrupted by a lot worse than a stuck-up Daily Mail reading fucking tweeds-trousered wanker. You know what I mean?
So what you're saying is they got off quite lucky in terms of their little afternoon romance.
I'm just saying, a lot more could have gone wrong. You're running the risk of skelfs on the log pile, marauding wild cats, all kinds of things.
Well, they should count themselves very lucky that they got off with a light fine. I mean, to be fair, they wouldn't have had to pay a marauding wild cat a 50 quid fine for having to witness their sexual exploits against a pile of logs.
Indeed. So that's my first story this week. What's yours?
From one pie to another, Greg. I have an update on the Pie Awards. As our listeners will know, a couple of episodes ago, we mentioned that one of our bakers in Scotland was up for a few pies in the Pie Awards, the World Pie Awards. So I know a couple of our listeners, Strong Henry in Canada, hello. I know you'll be delighted about this because you messaged us and said that you wanted to make a macaroni pie after reading this. So, I am delighted to announce that an Ayrshire baker, Brownings, the Bakers, has been awarded the title of the world's best Scotch pie. Brownings the Bakers, which has stores across the country, scooped the coveted World Championship Scotch Pie Gong. And we're gonna upload this photo to Instagram. Their pie award is just basically a massive pie on a plinth. It's beautiful. It's fucking beautiful. So they won this award, beating 400 other pies to the prize. It's the second time in recent years they've won this award, with a narrow second place last year, halting the family firm from another victory. The owner, John Gall, was absolutely delighted with the news, and he announced it this afternoon. This is a few days ago. John laughed. People must look at me and think I'm some athlete. John Gall, he's been a world champion twice. It's the athletic body of mine that makes me the world champion of pies. I think John's joking because he's not the most athletic of gentlemen, let's just say. He told Ayrshire Live, but seriously, we're all chuffed. To be fair, we were very surprised at the win for the second time. We were runners-up last year, and I told them, we're not going to lose this way. But to come back and win it again, it's been fantastic. Staff are all chuffed. I've not actually seen them because it's been a busy day, but I know that they're chuffed. I'll see them tomorrow morning and they'll all work incredibly hard. It's been absolutely excellent. So yeah, congratulations to them. He did admit that he oversaw the pies in general anyway, but this year he actually got involved into making the pies. because one of the main guys got COVID on that day, so he had to roll his sleeves up. Fantastic. All you can say is that we started off the week with a win, and hopefully, because he is the chairman of Darvel FC, who are playing Arbroath in the Scottish Cup this weekend. In fact, they're probably playing shortly as we record this, Greg. He says, hopefully we started this week off with a win, and hopefully we can finish it with a win at Arbroath and go on to win the treble. Yeah, I don't know about that. Right? So, Brownings, they also bagged prizes in the following categories. They won the Diamond Award for apple pie, the Silver Award for their butter chicken pie in the hot savoury category, and they won the Bronze Award for their, and this, as a vegetarian, this sounds fucking disgusting to me, their vegetarian cauliflower, leek and truffle oil pie. I don't fancy trying that, to be perfectly honest.
Who the fuck is going to a bakery in Scotland and ordering a cauliflower, leek and truffle oil pie?
Yeah.
I don't imagine it goes very well with a cigarette.
I don't know. No, I'd imagine not. No, I couldn't see us at 3 o'clock in the morning going, "Hi, can you give us a cauliflower, leek and truffle, please? Aye, cheers, man. Aye, that's my brown sauce, please. Yeah. Aye. And I bought Lion and Brew as well. Aye, cheers, man. Thanks." So yes, Alistair Smith, who is the chief executive of the Scottish Bakers who run the competition, that's a fucking great job. Said that we have overcome everything COVID could throw at us this year to celebrate the best pies, and as always, the results do not disappoint. It is with great pleasure that we can announce that Brownings the Bakers have taken the prize, and they can be rightly very proud of their achievements. We took delivery of over 400 entries this year, so to win is no small feat, and we know that every winning product was lovingly made from scratch from locally sourced ingredients, freshly made daily by skilled craftspeople. It just goes to show the skill, creativity, and hard work of each and every entrant. So this is called the World Scotch Pie Awards, but it's obviously based in Scotland. And I want to know, and I am putting out a challenge to you, Strong Henry. Look into this awards, because you said you made a mean Scotch pie. I'm championing you for the 2023 World Championship Scotch Pie Awards. Let's get this going, Strong Henry. Let's get Strong Henry a World Championship win at the 2023 Scotch Pie Awards. I'm going to look into this, and the next episode we'll have an update. I am looking into how you can enter this category and competition.
Yep, Henry can take the trophy back to Canada.
Because it's World Pie. It says it's World Pie. It's like the World Series baseball. You know, it's only open to American baseball teams. So, well, Canadian as well, I guess. You've got the Toronto Blue Jays. But yeah, this World Championship Scotch Pie, if it's only 400 entries, I can imagine COVID. It could be a bit difficult, you know, sending a pie over and stuff. But I'm looking into that. I'm going to make a note. Scotch Pie Awards, Henry.
Sure.
Well, in fact, I don't need to make a note. When I edit this, I'll remember.
I'll make a mental note.
So yeah, I mean, I think we've spoken about pies enough on the podcast, so I don't think we need to delve into too much. But yeah, congratulations to Brownings. But yeah, cauliflower, leek and truffle oil pie.
Fucking rank.
No, I think I'd
macaroni
rather that. What you described, you were shoving in the fish guts in a pie rather than that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm fucking starving now.
Okay, so what else have you seen this week, Greg?
I came across a story in the Courier, which is the newspaper for sort of Perth, the kind of Perth and Kinross area in Scotland, but because I don't subscribe and I don't want to subscribe to the Courier, I wasn't able to read the story, but I thought, well, that's quite a good story. So I thought maybe I can find it in another paper where I don't have to subscribe. But what it led me to was the Friday Court Roundup back in the Courier. So basically, I've got an abbreviated version of the story that I was looking for, but I've also got another story that I think you'll think is quite funny, Nicky. So I'll tell you that one first. So the headline for this story, just a little short one, right? Just a few lines. The headline is Trumped Up Charge. And it continues, an Angus man was cleared of assaulting police officers by farting on them. Colin Simpson, who's 55, and let's face it, should know better, from Arbroath, has been accused of attacking officers by passing wind and burping on them whilst laughing. But he was cleared of a series of charges, including driving and sexual offences, when the jury trial was ended after hearing from just one witness. So I imagine that the prosecutor and the judge are going to be quite annoyed about that, because clearly the one witness has put Colin somewhere else at the time of the alleged farting, burping, driving and sexual offences. So having done jury service in Scotland, knowing how much organisation and process is involved with arranging a jury case, there's going to be some annoyed people there. But at least a jury only had to do one day. So
I was expecting you were going to say the witness said, look, he was a judge at the Scottish Pie Awards, and I served him a cauliflower leek and truffle oil pie. So he cannot effectively be responsible for the actions of his anus expelling that gas.
Indeed.
So it's kind of unmitigated circumstances. He was not in charge of that deadly weapon in full duress. So we don't know what the witness actually said.
It doesn't say, but whatever the witness said, Colin is off the hook and is free to live his life.
Well done, Colin, you lucky bastard.
So the next story, which is the story that I was looking for, the headline says absolute discharge, and it says, in a rare legal move, a Perth woman was found guilty of assault but not convicted. Rebecca Edgley was granted an absolute discharge after a trial for assaulting her then partner Stephen Strang by throwing a pizza box at him. I mean, come on, who the fuck phones the police because they get a pizza box flung at them? The reason that she's been discharged is because the boyfriend, the picture of him here, he looks like a fucking right little cunt. Mr. Strang admitted that he punched the accused in the face and locked her in a cupboard before calling the police as they fought. But the sheriff, Gillian Wade, told her, "We've seen the injuries you received and you clearly came out the worst from this fight." So Rebecca walks free. And then the last one, I'm not going to read the article because it's about a Dundee moron singing sectarian songs, but with the recent departure of Meatloaf yesterday, when I read the headline, I started singing it to the tune of one of Meatloaf's most famous songs. So the headline is Sniffing Petrol, Gas and Glue, which immediately took me to Dead Ringer for Love. So rather than Rock and Roll and Brew, I've got Sniffing Petrol, Gas and Glue, Petrol, Gas and Glue.
Now, it's funny you said that, because as soon as you said that, my thought was When Rock and Roll Dreams Come True, which is another Meatloaf song.
It is indeed.
So it actually works for two, yeah.
Meatloaf's not sure about taking a chance on Cher because he prefers Sniffing Petrol, Gas and Glue, Petrol, Gas and Glue. So that's my second and final story this week.
Okay, well, I have another story about Argos today, Greg. I'm going back. My first story was about Pie Awards. Now I'm going back to Argos. So this is in Argos, which is still on the go. No catalogue nowadays, though, but you can still go in-store and shop online, obviously. So I think Argos is quite the same. You go in and you have to put your name down in the collection thing, and they will call your name. So they'll say collection for Greg, collection for Nikki.
Right.
Yeah. And and you have to go up and say, yeah, I'm here for Nikki. So a Scots auntie was left mortified after her cheeky nephew sneakily changed her Argos reference name to Dafty. So Joanne had been out shopping for a new toaster in Bray Head when the 28-year-old prankster decided to hijack her. She initially feared that the nickname would automatically appear on all of her future purchases with the retail giant. She wasted no time in telling staff at the store that she wasn't actually called Dafty and that Ian had been responsible for the hilarious prank on Wednesday. So there's a video clip which went on, I think, TikTok or Instagram, and Joanne is left fucking fuming when she finds out what he's done. She looks at the screen and she said, I've got to go and ask for a toaster for Dafty. That's what they're going to call me in the future. Ian can be heard sniggering behind the camera, whilst his mum, Shirley, was left in a fit of giggles after seeing the look on Joanne's face. And I'm going to take a screen grab of this and send this photo to you, Greg, because it's fucking a face. This is a furious Glasgow woman face. Like, she looks fucking raging. So Ian explained that I've always called her Dafty, which she doesn't particularly like because she's a little bit ditzy. She put in all her details into the system, and I said, I know a way that will make it go through quicker. I distracted her and told her to go and look at what my mum was looking at, so she went round the corner to see. When she was away, I deleted her name and put Dafty instead. She initially thought that every time she ordered from Argos from now on, she would automatically come up as Dafty, because I've done that with her Netflix account. She keeps trying to change it, but she doesn't know how to. Ian added that she went up to collect it and she said very quietly to the woman, "I've got a reservation." And the woman said, "What's the name?" She went, "Well, he's put down Dafty, but it's not my actual name." She since this went viral, she's had a lot of texts from people from her work asking if she's going to be a Dafty again today. I say the clip's gone viral on Twitter and it's racked up 172,000 views. And one viewer commented, "I love how her pal is just buckled at her. I do this to my parents constantly every time they ask me to order something to the house." And a second person added, "Toaster for Dafty is a band name waiting to happen." Nice little light-hearted story there. Yeah. Toaster for Dafty. That's brilliant. I'd love to see that, just the name booming out. When you're inputting stuff, I had that a lot when I lived in Dubai. I would always, if you were phoning up for restaurant reservations or something, and I'd be table for two, Nikki, and they'd go, "Mark?" and I'd go, "Yeah, that's fine." So for years, when I lived in Dubai, I would just go, "Yeah, table for two under the name of Mark," because it was just easier than Nikki N-I-C. Yeah, that's fine. I'll go by that name now. But to order Dafty.
That's brilliant.
That's brilliant. I'd love that, yeah. To hear that name booming out, "Toaster for Dafty," and that's got everyone looking around, isn't it?
It's a good put down Dafty because it's not like a harsh one. Do you know what I mean? Like I sometimes call my daughters Dafties if they do something silly, you know, if you drop something or you know, just say something daft or whatever the way kids do. It's one of my favourite ones, Dafty. So it is.
Yeah, but it's an affectionate kind of name. You need affectionate kind of nicknames. You know, Dafty is fine. I mean, I call my dog Stinky, and if I say Stinky, he does respond to it. It's a shame because he doesn't smell at all. But call him Stinky. But yeah, he could have put a lot worse, to be fair.
Yeah. I've occasionally so obviously I think we've mentioned it in the podcast before, you and I have a WhatsApp group with our mutual friend, and you know, like something that we've established over the last couple of weeks is our mutual friend is quite sensitive if you criticise something that he is really, really keen on. For example, Star Wars, the films of Christopher Nolan, etc., gets a bit upset. And so sometimes to sort of bring him down a bit, or if it, you know, or he gets a bit upset, he's not very good at spelling. So in grammar, and I quite like to, I've not done it for a while, but I quite like to make fun of like some of his spelling mistakes and things. So occasionally I'll throw the word Dafty in if I feel that he's getting a bit, you know, a wee bit annoyed by the tone of his messages, because he hates it when you, like, criticise his grammar or his spelling or whatever, or things that he's really, really keen on. Like this book of Boba Fett. I searched for somebody, like, for like an opinion that didn't like the book of Boba Fett, just to send it to him. And we know that he really doesn't like The Last Jedi. So I searched for like a video opinion from somebody who really liked The Last Jedi and thought it was good, just to send to him, just to get a reaction out of him.
I did not realise you did that. Because obviously I'm in this group chat and I saw those videos. I was like, that's going to be I didn't realise you'd specifically searched.
Yeah, I did it on purpose. So sometimes I'll just look for stuff online just to wind them up. I'll be 44 on my next birthday. I've got 2 children. Quite a demanding job. But I can always find time. Can always find a wee bit of time. Never gets old.
Never gets old. Can always find a wee bit of time to wind up one of my oldest friends.
To wind up one of my oldest, closest and best friends. I've always got a bit of time on my hands. To do a wee bit of web surfing. So
oh, fantastic. Okay, well, that rounds up the news for this week. Before we go on to review, let's have a little word from our sponsor.
Every year for the rest of your life, you could enjoy a fantastic free holiday for two. Collect 42 tokens in the Daily Record and Sunday Mail, and a free holiday a year for life with Direct Holidays could be yours. So make a note in your calendar. This is one date you won't want to miss.
Okay, so it was your choice on the podcast this week, Greg. So why do you tell us what we're going to be talking about on the Swally this week?
Okay, so I have chosen another play for today, the old BBC anthology drama series. It's another one by Peter McDougall, who two of his ones we've covered on the Swally before. We've done Just a Boys Game with Frankie Miller, and we've done Down Among the Big Boys with Billy Connolly and Douglas Henshaw. So I've chosen his first, the first play he ever got on a Play for Today, so his debut, Just Another Saturday, it was originally aired on the 13th of March, 1975. It tells the story of John, who is a drum major in an Orange Pipe band on the day of the Orange Parade in Glasgow. All the action takes place on this Saturday, and by the end of it, we have John questioning his beliefs and his lifestyle, some of the things that he sees over the course of the day. It stars John Mitchell, who we've had on the Swally. Sorry, not John Mitchell, beg your pardon. John Morrison, who we've had on the Swally before in Sweet 16. Eileen McCallum, who might be the female James Cosmo, but we can talk about that later on. Bill Henderson, Ken Hutchinson, formerly Dancer from Just a Boys Game, and some appearances from Billy Connolly, Jake Darcy, and a number of other people. It's directed by John Mackenzie, the late John Mackenzie, celebrated Scottish director, who also directed Just a Boys Game, The Long Good Friday, A Sense of Freedom, which we might do in a future episode, Looking After Jojo, which we might do in another episodes, and a whole host of other successful movies that aren't set in Scotland. So when I chose this last week, you said that you couldn't remember. You might have seen this before. So obviously you've watched it for the pod. Had you seen it before?
It's one of those things that kind of, it rings a bell. When you're watching it, you're thinking, have I seen this before? I don't think I have, but it does seem to ring a bell. It might have been on one night late on the BBC when I was sat at my computer playing Football Manager and just paying half attention. It maybe came on after Sports Scene or something, because it does kind of ring a little bit of resemblance, and I do recall a few scenes, but I might have seen it in some sort of clip show or something. But for the purposes, let's say it's probably it's the first time I've definitely sat down and watched it fully and paid attention from start to finish. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a bit slow to begin with. I mean, let's just say I wasn't a fan of the music. However, it was a bit slow to get started. I would say the first 40 minutes or so, takes a while to get going, but hey, the last 40 minutes really had me fully engrossed. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed watching this in terms of the spoiler alert, speaking about it. But yeah, it was fantastic insight into that time. Yeah. It made me feel nostalgic. Christ, I wasn't even born when this was filmed or when it's set or when it came out, but it just made me feel nostalgic for old Scotland. And I wonder, is it because Scotland hasn't really changed that much from that time in a way? Obviously, being from Aberdeen, Orange Marches aren't really a part, although I do believe they do happen in Aberdeen. But it's not a thing that ever was really in my life, and it was later in my life before I realised about them and understood, what they're for and why people are so against them and why people are so for them. And I have no opinion either way. Do whatever you want to do. I know, and that's the thing. On this episode, we're going to be very careful in terms of what we talk about, and we're not going to try and offend anyone. We are going to be speaking about this show because obviously I realise that this subject matter is quite a polarising thing. So if you are one way or the other, we apologise for whatever we're about to say if it offends you. But yeah, genuinely, I thought this was brilliant. I mean, hey, it's a Peter McDougall play for a day. The cast is absolutely astounding. And it's just it's a beautiful play in terms of the way it's done. Like, everything about it is so lovely. As I say, the music, okay, I could do without, but the way it's directed is just incredible. It's almost like a documentary.
Yeah.
But not. If that makes sense, the way it's done, it's so well crafted.
The way that the band is shot when they're marching, before they set out, the initial march, then at Glasgow Green, when they're all gathered there, then there's the speeches and everything else, and then the march back. And even, probably the most powerful part of the play is when the band come into what the characters in the film call Fenian Alley, and it kind of erupts into a bit of violence. You're right. I mean, even that is sort of shot a bit like a documentary. Like that scene there, it's certainly like stylized violence, and it's kind of, you're sort of led. Like, Mackenzie does a good job of making you think that you see a bit of violence, like some stones being thrown. There's the scene when Ken Hutchinson, he punches the old man through the window, and there's a scene when a bottle goes through a window while there's a little baby having a bath. But Mackenzie sort of suggests that there's worse going on than what you're being shown, and I think that's where that documentary feel comes in. I'll tell you a little bit about how the play came to be and how Peter McDougall came to write it. So McDougall, like a lot of people of his generation, he worked in the shipyards, like Billy Connolly. I think loads of other people who went on to careers, and he decided to try his luck as a house painter, and he was painting quite a famous British actor and screenwriter called Colin Welland, who wrote the script for Chariots of Fire, the sort of classic British movie about the 1 minute mile. And Colin Welland encouraged McDougall to try and write a television play. McDougall had been a drum major in an Orange band, so he knew that world very well. He submitted it to the BBC, and the BBC initially turned it down because of the subject matter. This is the early 1970s on British television, but they did see the value in the play. They were just nervous about putting such a sensitive subject on the screen. But they encouraged him to have another go, and he wrote another play called Just Your Luck, which maybe we'll do it. It's a bit slow. It feels very much like a play on the stage, Just Your Luck, but it's about a Protestant girl falling pregnant to a Catholic boy, and them having to get married, and how the families interact with each other and stuff, which the BBC filmed, went down well. Eileen McCallum's in it. Funnily enough, and the lady who played Effie in Take the High Road is also in it. I can't remember her name, and I think it did well. So the BBC finally filmed just on a Saturday. It went on to win the Prix Italia, which for Peter McDougall went on to win that. Yeah, like you've said already. I mean, I obviously come from Glasgow. You mentioned there that it sort of shows an old Glasgow and a sort of an old Scotland. The Orange Band is still very important to a lot of people in Glasgow, even in 2022. The Orange Band still marches. There's obviously been, in the last year or so, 18 months, there's been some quite negative press about Catholic priests being spat on by marchers and stuff like that. So, this was broadcast in March 1975. So what's that? That's let's say almost 50 years ago. It's not moved on all that much, really, compared to what we're showing in the film.
So what are your memories of Orange marches, Greg? Like, kind of having not so much been there, because I know your history, you're kind of in Glasgow and then, not, and then back. But as someone I've never seen an Orange March in live action, if that makes sense. Have you seen one?
When I was a little boy, I mean, my uncles, my oldest uncle, Uncle John, my mum's oldest brother, was a member of the Orange Lodge when he lived in Glasgow. I can remember when I was a little boy, my granny taking me to see the march, and it being quite exciting, because sort of bright colours, the music and everything. And, when you're little, you don't really, it's just, when you're that age, it's just some guys and some women playing the drums and the flutes and, playing catchy tunes. I mean, I'm like you. I mean, I'm not a fan of the music, but I got to be honest, I watched this a couple of times for the podcast, and I'm walking about in the kitchen and, and I kind of hear myself sort of whistling, do you know what I mean? Like the sash and all that. I'm like, holy shit. Because, whilst I don't agree with the sentiments of any of that music, it's fucking catchy as fuck. It's simple, catchy melodies. So no, I can remember being taken to see the marches when I was a little boy. Like you mentioned, like we moved away from Glasgow when I was like 8, and even though I was going back to see my dad and my family like sort of once a month, my dad's never been interested in it at all. My dad's a Protestant as well, but he didn't grow up in Glasgow. He grew up outside of Glasgow, so it wasn't a big part. His dad came from Stirling, so it wasn't like a big part of his life. I think for my mother, growing up in North Glasgow, for her, I mean, she claims to have she claims to have marched, like, to have been a member of the Orange Band and stuff when she was a teenager. She claims a lot of things, but it's never been a big part of my life at all. Although I know people who it's quite important to, even still. They're not bad people. They can be you stay out their way in July. You know what I mean? They're fine the rest of the year. But I should say that Nikki and I have got like no opinion on this either way. Like we don't fall on either side of the divide as adults. So it's a very objective conversation that we're going to have about the film. You can be sure of that.
No, I mean, purely, I'm from Aberdeen, and we genuinely, I can see both sides of the divide, but I don't have any opinion on either. I genuinely, it does cross my mind sometimes, thinking like, it must be nice to have a belief in something like that and have a kind of thought, because I genuinely have nothing. Like, I'm not saying I'm agnostic or I'm an atheist or, I don't know. I don't believe in anything. So but to have that, I can't understand it, but I can understand, if that makes sense. Like, for me, I can't get on board, but I can understand why people do believe in that. And I can believe why they feel so passionately about it, but I can't understand why it would lead to violence, if that makes sense.
I understand it, I guess. I understand the origins of it, because obviously Glasgow, it's a big industrial city, but also the west of Scotland certainly used to be a very industrial place, and a lot of people from Ireland moved to Scotland for work. And, it's sort of working class upbringing. People stay with their own people, so Protestants staying in their own groups, Catholics staying in their own groups, even though they would sort of work together, like most likely they'd be working together. And it says it in the, like when John's talking to his dad, and he says, you work alongside alongside Catholics at the work. And like when John meets Billy Connolly and Jake Darcy and the other guy in the pub later on, it's established that they're Catholics. But John, even though he spent the day marching in an Orange Band, these are his workmates and his friends, and he has up until the kind of wheels fall off, he's having a good night out with his mates, having a few drinks or telling jokes, having a laugh, and they're fundamentally the same types of guys. Working class, manual labourers, working down at the yards. There's nothing to separate them other than the fact that those three are Catholics and John's a Protestant,
But that's why John's such a likeable character, because he's not... A lot of the people that he meets on the march are very bigoted and are very opinionated of their opinions against the Catholic. John never says anything, and then I say it's kind of almost the big reveal when you find out that three of his best mates are Catholics, and of course it comes to the crisis of confidence later on, which I'm sure we'll come to. But that's why John is such a likable character, because he's not into kind of the whole thing. And to talk about the actual play, so it's his first march. He's obviously been in the pipe band, and he's excited because it's his first big march, and he can't sleep, and he kind of keeps waking up, and then he gets up and gets ready, and off he goes wearing his dad's coat, and he's on the bus and comes to the lodge to meet all his mates, and everyone's excited about this march. And I guess it is a big occasion and a big moment in terms of the year. This is kind of their World Cup final, or this is their Wimbledon, this is their day. They get to go and march and play their flutes and bang their drums and wave their flags at John Knox and just enjoy themselves and shove it in Catholics' faces and just be themselves. I guess it's like gay pride for produce, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's clearly an element in the lodge that are sensible. There's like, look, it's a march, we'll be marching. Don't let the guys get drunk. No dancing, X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And then there's like the other side. Sort of Ken Hutchinson plays Rab Williamson, and it's he's like looking for bother. He's like, come on, Jet, show them what it's all about, John, and blah blah blah, and make sure you throw that as high as you can, and everything else, and then of course he instigates the violence in the kind of Catholic neighbourhood in the middle of the film.
Well, because they're all getting pished before they go on their march, and that's the instance that it's almost the disbelief that John hasn't had anything. And as he says to him, like, you need Jake. Yeah. Oh, that's great, son. Like, almost disbelief that, like, you're not pished that before we go on this. Like, we're going to have a fucking randan here. And as you say, you can tell he's looking for trouble, because it's later on, like, as soon as we leave this main bit, we're going to go off here and you fucking go laldi.
Listen, you've done great, son. But let's see that stick really going up in the air there. We're coming to the alley.
Okay, Donald, you got it. Billy boys, on you go!
Yeah, he's looking for trouble. But he hasn't had anything to drink before they go on the first march, and he just wants to do his best.
Yeah, I mean, like, for John, he's it's not necessarily the sectarian side of the marching. It feels like for John, it's the ceremony. It's getting the good gear on. It's I don't want to put my trousers on too early in case I blunt those creases. And
exactly,
and all that.
Yeah. He's proud. Yeah,
yeah, but he's almost a bit sort of naive about the sort of the underlying kind of nastiness that we see the little flashes of throughout the day, obviously culminating in the kind of fight in the alley. Like when he meets the guy on the bus that knows his dad, and they're giving the Clippy, he's giving the Clippy a hard time, and when he leaves the house, he's all kind of bravado, well, I'll let them look at my uniform then, and all that, and then as soon as he's walking down the street and he can see people looking out the window, he's suddenly very self-conscious and puts his dad's big jacket on to hide his uniform.
But that's, as you say, that he's a good guy because he puts the jacket on. When he's on the bus speaking to the Jakey, and the Jakey is getting thrown off, given the little Clippy abuse for being a Catholic, and she throws him off for not having the extra money, and John offers the guy, he's like, I can give you 5p for the next stop. And he's like, oh no, it's okay, I'm getting off here anyway. And that just shows what a nice guy that John actually is. And then when they have the first march, and then they go to the park, and then they go to the bar, him and his mate, and they see the guys nicking, when they bump into Eric from Still Game, and this guy's nicking half bottles from behind the bar. John's quite offended and upset by that, and saying, oh, this is, that's not right. They're going to get caught. Get out of here before the police come. John's a good guy at heart. He really is. And that's why I think it's a beautiful thing in terms of the way constructed. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah. The relationship that he has with his dad. Well, actually, before that, the relationship that he has with his mother. So he's obviously the oldest of, I counted 4. There could have been more there, right? I counted 4. The sister and the 2 kids that he shares the room with. You don't even hear their names. The only time that they're really acknowledged is when John gets up out of bed at the beginning, and he's like sort of wrestling with them before he goes and gets dressed. And then when he's leaving the house and he shouts, "Cheerio, Waynes!" And like Lizzie, played by Eileen McCallum, his mum, she kind of puts him on a total pedestal. You know what I mean? It's like she's the one who's concerned about the dad, Dan, played by Bill Henderson. We learn later on that he'd been away at sea for like 14 years. He's come back, works during the week, gets lashed at the weekend, gives her their wages. It seems like it's quite a loveless sort of marriage, and they all the sort of like affection that you would expect her to have for her husband, it's just all channeled onto John. You know what I mean? Later, towards the end of the play, when John's like, I need to get away from here, when things haven't, he sort of had his eyes opened by the events of the day, and she's immediately, he can't leave, you can't leave, there's nobody like your own people, and at least you believe in something, son, and all that kind of thing, and doing everything to make sure that he's always there. But yet, despite the fact that Dan has apparently been absent for a big part of John's life, he's got a really good relationship with his dad. You know what I mean? They go to the pub, take his dad's like, oh, don't worry, I'll meet you down the stairs. I'll bring your clothes down later on, and we'll go for a drink and everything. Oh
no, I think they've got a lovely relationship. And I think it's not until later that it actually gets going. So first part is very much the build up and everything that's coming. And watching it, I did think like, Jesus, a bit slow. And then, but looking back on it now, I can see where they were going with it, because the way it builds up and then it leads to kind of the big kind of climax. I mean, this only really starts going when they get to Finale, really.
It goes up a gear for sure,
Yeah.
I mean, there's good moments earlier on, like when they're at Glasgow Green and the old guy looking for his teeth that have fallen out, when John and Jim decide to go and try and find a pub to go for a pint, and that's where they bump into Eric, isn't it, from Still Game, and some guys from one of the other lodges are stealing half bottles off the back of the bar. There's only one bartender. And like typical sort of Glasgow, right? There's not, the guy's on by himself. It's like, there should be more bartenders on, like zero sympathy for the overworked bartender. Like, absolutely none at all. I mean, maybe it might just be a Scottish thing. It might not even be a Glasgow thing.
I don't know, but you would expect, like, one of the characters even references it. Like, kind of, it's probably one of the busiest days of the year.
Yeah.
And he's got man of the bar himself. Like, why don't you hire someone? He'd have saved a lot more money than losing all those half bottles.
You see the police car tearing down the road after John and Jim have left. So there's some good moments. And I think, a play for today, we've spoken about it before, but I think one of the objectives of that whole series was to kind of show real life, or like slices of real life in the UK, So I think it was important to, and this is pure conjecture on my part, but I think it was important to Peter McDougall and to John Mackenzie to sort of show that this something that's really quite particular to Glasgow. And for anybody, you mentioned it earlier on, it's difficult to sort of understand, really, unless you've kind of grown up close to it or involved in it. It's bizarre that it really is. I still think it's really bizarre. So like sort of showing that on television, I think was quite important to them. I think possibly more important than the second sort of half of the film, which ironically, to your point, is a lot more engaging. As soon as John changes out of his uniform back at the lodge and hits the pub with his dad, it's like a different film almost. I mean, the banter in both pubs, the banter like in the pub with Joe and Dan and John, with the deaf guy that comes in when the old guy's singing the song and the deaf guy comes in and he's lip reading and he thinks that he's winding him up.
Yeah, Big Huey the dummy.
Yeah. And then like the banter in the second pub when John goes and meets Billy Connolly, who plays Paddy, and his mates. It's brilliant. And you could have a whole movie, like a whole like hour and 20 minutes just with all that going on. And it would be absolutely fantastic.
Oh no, yeah, I think that banter that they have in the pubs is brilliant. I could have watched that for a very long time. And the interaction they have is fantastic. And that's the thing with this. There's a lot of joke telling and a lot of kind of obvious jokes, and some of them are quite funny, some of them aren't so funny. I did wonder why that was put in, because it does seem quite obviously shoehorned in. And I wondered, was that because of Billy Connolly? Because he has a couple in particular that he puts in. But there are a few earlier on. I know Joe in the pub tells a few, and John tells a few, and his friends tell a few. But was that shoehorned in so that it didn't look so obvious that Billy Connolly was telling jokes? Or was that...
Hey, wee Glasgow woman.
Up in the High Court for murder, big barrister says, and tell me, Mrs. McCallum, why did you shoot your husband with a bow and arrow? She says, oh, I didn't want to waken the winds.
I think that, because if you look at, if like in both of the pub scenes, there are next to no women in any of the pub scenes, right? It's mostly guys.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of women in the first pub, because one of them, because like John tells one of them that he's sent his dad home, you know. But in the second scene, like in the scene with Billy Connolly and his mates in the pub, there are no women, and I think, and Billy Connolly talks about that sort of pub environment a lot in his stand-up, and I think that's just kind of what it was like kind of working men having a crack, telling each other jokes. I mean, when I used to work in the Country Park Inn in Mintlaw, you would get a lot of guys would come in after work. And it would, you know, some guys would sit quietly, have a pint or two, not really talk to anybody. Other guys would sort of hold court in the way that Billy Connolly and his mates do, and talk and tell jokes and take the piss out of each other and all that kind of thing. And I think they were just trying to get that sort of, try to convey that sort of environment, because, like, you know, like for some people, like my granny never set foot in a pub her whole life. Never once in her life set foot in a pub. So for someone like her, I can imagine that, yeah, she probably wouldn't want to know, to be honest, what went on in there. But to her, it's like, you know, it'd be like a bit of a peek behind the curtain at this quite male-dominated environment. You know, this is where these guys go. This is what they've been doing before they come back, looking for something to eat and fall asleep in a chair or get brought home by the police or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I think they'll just try to convey that sort of kind of working class, hard-working men decompressing after working all week in the shipyards or the factories or whatever, you know. I don't know. It's before I was born as well, so to your point, I mean, although some of the jokes aren't great, there are some brilliant lines. I think one of my favourite ones is from Dan, John's dad, when early on when they're talking about the Queen. And Dan says, God bless her and send her wee dogs plenty of grass to run on. Really tickled me for some reason.
Hey, here he is, Lizzie. Defender of the faith, keeper of liberty and freedom, stalwart orangeman and stick swinger extraordinary. Oh, the Queen's religion's safe, God bless her, and send her wee dogs plenty of grass to run on.
You look awful nice, son. Never mind him, he's just a big waster. At least you believe in something. Oh, he's good for a drink.
Terribly harsh words, Lizzie, considering I haven't given you your wages.
And then one of the women shouts across the road at John, sing us a song like you sang at your ma's wedding, you orange bastard. Right. The orange bastard bit is regrettable, and obviously that's not funny. But the lead up to that, I thought was very funny. The other thing that I find quite funny about this, I mean, obviously it's gone out in the BBC, so the language, in terms of your sort of, you know, like your kind of main swear words, there's no F words. There's no C words.
There's not a lot, no.
There's, like, obviously bastard. I think they use the word shite once or twice. But there's a lot of, like, sectarian abusive words. Like the word pape for Catholics, Fenians, obviously orange bastards, as we mentioned already, proddies and everything. It's funny that the BBC have decided, well, it's okay for the characters to use that terminology, but I think there's a few swearing substitutes, like get yourself blocked, for example. It doesn't take a great imagination to know what that stands in for.
Well, that's something I thought about. I mean, could you get away with something like this nowadays in terms of the language used? Not in terms of swearing, because nowadays they would use the F-bomb, but would they be more kind of wary of using terms like Fenian or any other derogatory terms for, you know, Catholics or Protestants nowadays?
I don't know. I mean, Kenneth Branagh's got a movie out. I was watching the trailer for it today called Belfast, and it's set in Belfast, funnily enough, in the late 60s at the sort of height of the Troubles. So, I mean, I imagine that, in the trailer there's some scenes of rioting and things like that. So there's obviously a bit of violence in it. So I would imagine that some of that terminology would probably come up in that film, you know. But to have it on the television, you know, you would have to, I don't know, I think you could probably do it. But I think, you know, I mean, what sort of story could you tell about about these sort of circumstances in kind of modern Glasgow, because it's not, I mean, it certainly seems a lot smaller than it is shown to be in the film. I mean, I can remember when I moved back to Glasgow from England in 2013, and I was staying in a serviced apartment in George Square because we still had our tenants in the house. We had to give them sort of 2 months or something to get organised and move out so we could move back in. And like the first Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of an orange band playing in George Square. And I was really quite surprised by it because when I lived in Glasgow, I lived in Steps in the north of Glasgow, and like you don't see orange bands or anything out that way, you know? So I don't think it's quite as important to as many people as it obviously was at the time that the film is set. But obviously there are still enthusiasts, you know, they still exist. So
we cannot talk about this and not talk for quite a bit about Billy Connolly. And I know we touched upon him earlier, but he has a very fleeting role in this play, but a very impactful role as well. And this is one of, or if not his first kind of role. It might
be his first acting role. He was obviously well known when this came out, for sure. I mean, he'd been working, obviously he'd been performing with Tam Harvey and Jerry Rafferty as the Humble Bums, and performing on his own a bit later on. So this came out in 1975. 1975 is the same year that he was on Parkinson and told the joke about the bum and the bike rack and stuff, and sort of overnight became an absolute superstar. But I think for sure this would have been his first acting role. I mean, and he's just playing himself, really. You know what I mean? I don't think there's not much of a stretch for him. I think it was obviously a world that he knew incredibly well from working in the shipyards and everything. And you know, I don't think it was really stretching his acting capabilities, just telling jokes in the pub.
Yeah, but he's very believable as well.
Oh, yeah, for
and
sure.
He is very convincing, and you wouldn't think that that's some stand-up guy from the Glasgow comedy clubs just doing a turn.
Yeah.
He genuinely looks the part in this.
Yeah, and he's a good character because he sticks up for John. You know what I mean? He's right in with the head outside as well when it's the first one. Yeah. No, I think I mentioned to you before, since Christmas, so there's two biographies of Billy Connolly. There's one that his wife wrote back in, I think, 2001, 2002. Pamela Stevenson wrote about his life, and he's just written, because he can't do stand-up and stuff anymore because of his Parkinson's condition, he's been writing, and he's written his own autobiography. And I was a bit disappointed that he doesn't talk about any of the plays for today that he did. So he's obviously...
Oh, really?
Yeah, he didn't talk about it at all. He's obviously... He did this one. A year after, he does another Peter McDougall one called Elephant's Graveyard, again with John Mitchell. It's just John Morrison. I keep calling fucking John Mitchell. It's a two-hander. It's just him and John Morrison. So he's like joint lead. It's about two guys that have lost their jobs and go and hide in the woods all day because they can't face telling their wives that they've lost their jobs. And he doesn't mention it at all. His autobiography, it's not, it's pretty vanilla. He doesn't go into a great deal of detail about his personal life that much, really, and stuff. You know, it's I think the one his wife wrote is a better, more comprehensive biography than the one he's written himself. So that's my book review this week. But yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, having shown the fact that these guys are all fundamentally the same, have a lot in common despite the religion, everything's important. And I like the fact that the guy that wants to set about John is also a Catholic, like Billy Connolly's character and stuff, and they're sticking up for him. He's with us, he had nothing to do with what happened to your brother, blah blah blah, and they saved John from severe doing,
So I went on to online and read a few reviews about Just Another Saturday. So this is from Amazon, and it says, this play was directed by a Roman Catholic and was broadcast for one purpose only, and that was to damage the Orange Order. And guess what? It worked. Sickening.
I don't think the Orange Order needs any help from anybody to damage their reputation. They seem to have done a pretty good job of that over the years.
And then I also had a couple of other reviews, which I thought were very good. I went on to rangersmedia.co.uk, and someone had asked if, it was a Canadian actually, had asked if anyone had seen this. And someone, he said, yeah, I watched it. I thought the tunes were great. Billy Connolly was great. So yeah, has anyone seen this play for today? First response, it's no a play, it's a film. And it's no bad.
You know, when I chose this, I did think quite carefully about it. So I was like, you know, I mean, we obviously don't have a widespread, like a massive following. But, you know, I wasn't worried about anybody getting annoyed with us because of something that we said that could be construed as taking a piss out of the Orange Lodge or vice versa. Because to be quite honest, I don't really need anybody like that listening to the podcast, to be honest. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like I said before, you and I don't care either way.
Right.
You know, unfortunately, there's an element of Celtic fans, there's an element of Rangers fans that don't cover themselves in glory, especially when both teams play against each other, you know, and a lot of this comes into it, you know.
Football's got nothing to do with this. It's a young guy trying to find his way, and he's found something that he's a part of. And what I took out of this was the relationship that he has with his father and with his mother. And his father is trying to tell him, effectively, don't make the mistakes I did, son. And even in the first scene, when he's saying to him, you're going to regret that King Billy tattoo because I know I did, the father is trying to say, don't make the same mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
And the mother is also trying to convey to him, don't make the same mistakes your father did.
Yeah.
It's wholesome at the end of the day. I think the father-son relationship comes across very well. And the dad dotes on his son.
Yeah.
He takes his clothes to him, to the pub after his march. He's in the pub with him. His dad gets pissed extremely quickly, though. He does get hammered quite quickly. But his son looks after him, takes him out, sends him on his merry way home. And I think overall, it's a nice message if you look into it in that way.
Ewan Davidson, writing for the BFI Screen Online, says that the play is about beliefs in innocence and the desire to escape. As Lizzie tells John, at least you believe in something. Dan despises all the organisations on both sides of Glasgow, Protestant-Catholic divide. He ridicules what he sees as their moral hypocrisies, like suffering for the cause. There is pointed irony in the fact that the only injury John incurs over the whole day is from a confused drunk. Dan points out the divisions that the organisations cause and the many contradictions from Scottish history that make their positions absurd. His quiet socialist conviction is delivered with great pathos. You know, I think that little paragraph, to your point, does sum the whole thing up. Really, you know what I mean? Like the confused drunk is a friend of a very young Alex Norton.
Yes.
See there, the two guys singing in the bus stop. Always good when Alex Norton pops up. He was a good-looking young man, wasn't he? His day.
Oh, he certainly was. Yeah, as we said before in the podcast, like a young Phil Collins.
Yeah.
The one thing that I would say about this is, in fact, it's two things I would say. He gets punched in the mouth, and that's his only real injury.
Yeah.
But when he gets home, Lizzie cooks up a really quick dinner for him. She's lightning fast. And two, he's chewing very well with a burst mouth. You can see the blood in his mouth, but he's still chewing away on whatever it is he's eating. You wouldn't be doing that. No way.
His fat lip is actually miraculously healed by the time he gets in bed. Did you notice that as well?
I did not notice that. No, I'll have to watch that again. Didn't notice that.
I tell you something that I liked in this, and it can reminded me of my days working in like the pub. Like it's probably sort of kind of grown-ups pubs, is the kind of warm and respectful kind of relationship between the young guys and the older guys. You know what I mean? So John's there. He's only 17, or he's supposed to be only 17.
No.
He's having a beer with his dad. He's having a beer with his dad's mate. He's drinking pints with whiskey chasers. Now, I don't know about you, but at 17, I wouldn't be drinking pints of heavy with whiskey chasers. Fuck's sake. But I did like that. There was no sort of generational sort of camp. It was, you know, they're there together. They're all getting on well, laughing at the same jokes, laughing at each other's jokes and stuff. You know, it wasn't a case of, you know, we're the 1970. I'm a member of the 1970s generation, and I don't identify with my dad's generation or his mates or whatever. Like, maybe McDougall's written that to show that John's circumstances aren't that different from what his dads were when he was younger, or his dad's friends, you know, out of school, into the yards, or wherever he's gone.
No, and it's only casually referenced at the end of the film when John effectively tells him that he wants to leave home, and his dad says to him, like, no, you're not 19. Because I guess at that time, you had to be 19 to be classed as an adult.
Yeah,
he says, like, you're only 17, you shouldn't be out drinking, but you still are. And
it says you're going to drink despite what I say.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah, very well done.
Now, I want to mention for a minute the actor Ken Hutchison, who plays Rab. So I've looked into Ken before when we did Just a Boys Game, because obviously he's one of the main leads in that. So seemingly, like, the sort of general consensus on Ken Hutchison is that he was one of the best character actors of this time, like in the 70s. Like he's in Straw Dogs, the Sam Peckinpah film. I think he's one of the guys who rapes Susan George's character. Apparently he got on really well with Sam Peckinpah, the director, the famous American director who directed like The Wild Bunch, a lot of other films. They bonded over the fact that they both liked a right good fucking drink, which apparently the rest of the cast, Dustin Hoffman among them, imagine him being quite a serious sort of professional actor, didn't appreciate. But seemingly the sort of general consensus is that he was a bit wary about being very well known and successful as an actor. He liked to act, but the sort of general feeling is that he could have been massive, like a huge Scottish actor of his generation, and he chose a bit of a different path. And if you look at his IMDb, he's obviously got The Place for Today. He's got an episode of Shoestring. He's got an episode of Target. He's got an episode of Bergerac. He stars in the old BBC adaptation of Wuthering Heights where he plays Heathcliff. But yeah, he's just sort of just not really kind of wanted to go to... The article I read said that Hollywood's loss was British television's gain, but I don't know. It's also a bit of a mystery as to why he never kind of chased after it, you know, when he was clearly really fucking good at it.
No, it was incredible.
The character... If you think about Dancer and you think about this character Rab, unless like you saw the credit, you wouldn't know it was the same guy. He seems smaller. You know, like his posture as Rab is terrible. There's a scene when he's taking a drink, and it's like he's almost got a fucking hump. The way he's sort of bent over and everything. And then his Dancer, he's tall, kind of good-looking, charming guy. You know, he's a great actor.
Yeah. And what are they, like 3-4 years apart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 years apart, yeah. No, 4 years. Yeah, 4 years, you're right, yeah.
Incredible. The range that he has, he could have gone on to do so much more, Shame.
Yeah, great actor. So, what else? Have we got anything else about the minefield, apparently, that it's just another Saturday? Or shall we put it through our awards?
The only other thing I would say is the pure nonchalance of, and I did quite like it, is when John gets something thrown at him in Fenian Alley and he takes his jumper off and the audience are kind of guessing and you're thinking, is someone just throwing shit at him? And it's not until 5 minutes later that he does say, I had a keek thrown on me. And you're like, it was a shite. Because he takes his jumper off and sniffs it and you're thinking, it must have been.
He wipes his fingers on the fucking parked van beside him.
Yeah, I like that. But other than that, no, I think let's run it through the awards. What's up first?
Okay, so the Ewan McGregor Award for gratuitous nudity. I just had John kind of running about in his Y-fronts in the morning before he got dressed.
Yeah, well, I put none for that, so let's go with that then.
Yeah, not very gratuitous. So, the James Cosmo Award for being in everything Scottish. Like we said earlier on in the pod, there's definitely a case for Eileen McCallum being the female James Cosmo. I mean, she's literally been in every popular and not so popular Scottish production on the television over the last 50 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, Eileen McCallum is the only name I have down. She was in not every episode, sorry, but she was in the first episode of Take the High Road and she was in the last episode and she was in it for the whole stint.
She's now in River City. Yeah. She's in the Steamy
of course.
With Peter Mullen.
And Still Game.
Still Game. She was in, there was a Scottish soap opera which you can see a bit of online. on YouTube if you're interested, which is it's kind of counted like a kind of false start for Take the High Road, called Garnock Way, sort of like the first shot at a Scottish soap opera. Gerard Kelly's in it as well. Yeah, she's in absolutely everything.
Well, Eileen McCallum wins it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So the Jake McQuillan, your Tease Out Award, who did you give this one to?
I had 2, which I presume there's only 2 really.
Yeah. Well, no, there's the one we mentioned earlier. So Paddy, played by Billy Connolly, going straight in with the heed outside the pub. There's obviously Alex Norton's pal giving John a sore face.
Oh yeah, of course.
And there's Jim, Joe's friend, kind of turning on one of the lodgemen in the alley. I think when the Orange Lodge guy's trying to restrain him and he sticks the head in him or something. You know the guy that we see going down the slide in Glasgow Green?
Oh yeah. Well, my other one was the guy at Rab when the old man at the window.
Oh yeah,
and
of course.
I know you mentioned it earlier, but it's almost like an Evil Dead stop motion kind of the way it's done, the way it cuts. You see his fist and then But yeah, I give it to Billy Connolly sticking the head on the razor slasher.
Yeah, we've sort of spoken about it already, I guess. But the Francis Begbie Award for swearing.
The only thing is when Joe gives the joke about the shite and the dirty bastard.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of swearing in this at all, as we discussed, and that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, I think bastard is like probably the strongest swear word that's used in the whole thing, you know. So, and then archetypal Scottish moment, West Coast sectarianism.
I shied away from that. What did you go for?
Well, I don't know. I sort of struggled a bit with it because there's a lot of stuff that's quite sort of particular to Glasgow, which I don't think is fair to call it archetypally Scottish. But what I had, because I've never seen this anywhere else on any of my travels, is guys chasing pints with nips. Don't think anyone else does that.
Is that an archetypal Scottish thing, do you think?
I'm only saying that because I've never seen that anywhere else. And like I lived in England for a lot of years, you know. I've been in like English boozers. You lived in Norwich for a year. Did you ever see anybody ordering a pint and a half? Or not a half, but like a nip?
No, I didn't. And I lived in Dubai for 12 years and went to the pub quite a lot with a lot of English and Dutch and Danish people. And I cannot recall ever seeing anyone doing that either. So you're right. It could be a very archetypal Scottish moment. Yeah, I think you're right.
What did you have?
I had the word key. Yeah.
Yeah. The word keely is quite a Scottish one as well. You know, running about like a keely. There was also when the old guy gets up in the pub after some encouragement and sings a barely coherent song.
Yeah, but it's an Italian song, isn't it?
Is it supposed to be an Italian song? It's not just that, like, you know, when Billy Connolly does that whole line and he's an audience with, and he talks about the Scottish singers, though, Harry Fo, and you only get like 1 or 2 words of English. I thought that was it.
Maybe. I thought it was like an Italian song. I don't know.
Go back and read that again, watch that again. You could be right. I don't know. And then finally, the Sean Connery Award. Who do you think wins the movie? I think it has to be John Morrison. I think he's absolutely brilliant. He's in every single scene, pretty much. And to your point, obviously John starts the day very enthusiastic about being a member of the lodge, has a real crisis has a few sort of conflicts about his beliefs throughout the course of the day, sort of culminating with a riot on Duncan Street, otherwise known as Fenian Alley, and then obviously his sort of journey home after the fight outside the pub. You know, like you mentioned earlier, the way he plays it, despite the fact that he's going off to the Orange Band, he's still a sympathetic character. I think the only thing is, it's a wee bit disappointing after all his sort of soul searching and stuff in the last sort of act and a half of the film, how the last line of the movie is him saying, "We are the people." So you're sort of left with this sort of ambiguous ending. Well, has he learnt a lesson? Or is it just going to be like he's had an adventure that day and it'll be one to talk about, you know, running away from the police, getting the head stuck on him, getting punched by the guy in the bus stop and everything else? Or is he going to stick to these convictions, the conversation that he had with his dad? Is he going to save up money and go somewhere else? you know. But I thought he was really good in it. Really good act. What did you have?
Bill Henderson.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Bill Henderson would be my second choice. I mean, I've not, you know, I looked at his IMDb. He was another one that was in Garnock Way. He was also in Take the High Road. But he's brilliant as Dan, the dad. You know, really, really good. And like, especially when his whole sort of demeanour kind of changes towards the end of his last sort of scene. You know, he's been wisecracking, you know, he's been having a laugh at Lizzie's expense and everything and not taking things too seriously, to the point where he realises that if John decides to go, she'll throw him out. You know, she'll blame him, she'll chuck him out and everything, and he sort of goes from being sort of John's pal to trying to be his father in the last kind of couple of minutes. Yeah, actually, I think I would maybe give it to that, actually, give it to Bill Henderson on reflection.
I thought it came across great in terms of the character of this husband who, he's so nice to John, you can tell he dotes on his son. With Lizzie, the relationship they have, okay, but I say with John, when he comes down, he says, like, take my coat, I'll come to the bus stop with you. And he's trying to be so nice and trying to placate his wife and try to keep a happy balance. And Lizzie does make a few jokes and comments about him being a drunk and getting pissed, and so does John as well. And he likes a drink, and he does say, you know, he works all week and then he just likes getting a drink at the weekend. But I think he's a good character. He wants to do well. He's a nice guy. He's just looking out for his son. And he wins it for me.
All right. Well, that was just on a Saturday. If you've got any strong beliefs, don't write in and tell us about them. It didn't set out to upset any of you, regardless of what side of the divide you might fall upon. Obviously, that was my choice for this episode. It's your choice for the next one, Nikki. So what are we going to be watching?
Well, next time, Greg, I'd like to go back to 1995. Hey, that was our glory days.
Glory days with denim jacket.
Well, we didn't know each other back then, but hey, 1995, what a great year. Although, actually, it came out in 1995, but I'd like to go back to 1713, and I want to look at the life and times of Robert Roy McGregor, and look at 1995's Rob Roy.
I was not expecting that ever to come up on the Swally, so... I actually saw this. It was on the TV here a couple of months ago. So I didn't see the whole thing. I just saw the last half an hour or so. But what a cast! Yeah, awesome
what
cast.
What a non-Scottish cast.
Well, Brian Cox is in there.
And I think that's about it.
Right then. Well, okay.
Well, it does count though. It's set in Scotland. It's about one of Scotland's greatest legends, but if you look at the cast, yeah, it's quite slim pickings, I think.
Okay, well, I look forward to watching Rob Roy. I do like a bit of Liam Neeson, and a bit of Eric Stoltz, and a bit of Jessica Lange.
And a bit of Tim Roth as well.
Yeah, a bit of Tim Roth. Well, before you ask me, I have been watching videos to teach me how to use WordPress properly. So because WordPress is not that easy to use. It's not very intuitive, as I'm sure people that have their own websites and things that listen to the podcast will know well. So I've been learning. So we should have something up there very soon.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can follow us on Instagram at Culture Swally Pod, or you can follow us on Twitter at Swally Pod, or why don't you drop us an email on cultureswally@gmail.com with anything you would like us to review or anything that you've seen in the news that you'd like us to cover. And please feel free to give us a little rating, review, subscription on iTunes, whatever you'd like to do. It really helps the podcast to grow. So, until next time, Rob Roy.
Yeah, until next time, Rob Roy. I wonder if Rob Roy was a Catholic or a Protestant.
We'll find out.
I feel like he was Church of Scotland.
We'll delve into that next episode. He was an outlaw, so... must have been a proddy.
Okie doke. If I don't see you through the week, I'll see you through the windy.
Come in then.
Oh, hold on. The Nyanya's going to give us a song. Come on, Nya, give us a chant. That's this stuff.
I'm so lonely.
What else does he do for a living?
Keeps him happy. His soul's got little else.
I can see that. How'd you get him to stop?
Go on yourself, Nya, belt it out.